Well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for being here. We just wrapped up a roundtable with businesses talking about the impacts of the new tariffs being initiated and put out there by the Trump administration. One of the things that we know here at Oregon is Oregon is known for making things, producing things, growing things. We are so proud to talk about things that are made and grown in Oregon. And these tariffs, both on the imports and the exports, are affecting Oregon businesses today. They are going to affect Oregon consumers. And I'm very concerned, particularly the information we learned today, about some very specific impacts on industries that are really important for the state of Oregon. Oregon is a very trade-dependent state. We bring in things that we make, whether you're bringing in a crop to make a food product, or you're bringing in something to make packaging. We make things here, we grow things, and then we sell them to other places. You're going to hear from folks today talking about the different export markets where their products go. These tariffs are undermining relationships with export markets in Canada and Mexico, in Europe, in Asia, that have been developed over decades. They could be damaged for years with these tariffs because of the impacts they are having right now in those markets. What businesses need is predictability and certainty. What these tariffs are causing is the complete opposite. The uncertainty and the unpredictability that businesses are facing right now is affecting our businesses, and consumers will also take a hit from this uncertainty. One of the things we talked about today with the President Trump's 10% minimum tariff, that's not even talking about the other ones that are coming specific to countries or other retaliatory tariffs, the 10% minimum tariffs that are in place today, if they had been in place last year, Oregon had $28.2 billion in imported goods last year. If those 10% tariffs were in place last year, companies in Oregon would have had an additional $7.4 billion in taxes to pay. That's hard on businesses, particularly our small and mid-sized businesses, and those dollars and those taxes get passed on to consumers. We all know the cost of living is high. People are struggling. This is not what we need right now, and I heard loud and clear from businesses that they are concerned. There's impact today. They're going to need help. We're going to try to work together and find those solutions. One of the things I'm announcing today with the Oregon Business Development Department, Business Oregon, is a survey. We're asking businesses to let us know how they are being impacted. So with all that information, we can craft strategies to try to help our businesses here in the state. But the scale and speed at which these tariffs are coming down from the federal government and impacting markets across the globe has created a number of problems for Oregon businesses. You're going to hear from a couple of businesses today. But before we do that, we're going to go to our treasurer, who's going to make some comments, and then we're going to go to two businesses, and then we'll have a little time for some questions. So, Madam Treasurer.
Thank you, Governor. I'm State Treasurer Elizabeth Steiner, and I would echo what the Governor said about the importance of predictability. Additionally, I would say this. I ran for State Treasurer because as a family physician, I know that financial security is critical to the well-being of individuals, of families, and of businesses. And tariffs are absolutely detrimental to the well-being, financial security of individuals, of families, and businesses. And there's a very symbiotic relationship. If families are having to pay higher prices, they have less discretionary income. That means that products that they would normally buy, maybe high premium protein oats from Bob's Red Mill, maybe they're buying generic oats then, right? And that's bad for Oregon-based businesses. Families in Oregon, based on our financial wellness scorecard that we published at our Treasury in January, 50% of families in Oregon cannot find $500 for an emergency. Economists estimate that the tariffs that have been imposed by the Trump administration would impact families on an average of $3,800 per year. If they can't find $500 for an emergency, how will they find an additional $3,800 to pay for essentials? When families are struggling like this, they face increased stress, they face an increased likelihood of being displaced from their housing, they face food insecurity, they face trouble getting their cars fixed so they can go to work, and it becomes these vicious cycles. So at Treasury, we're very concerned in helping grow Oregon's economy and helping families and individuals build financial security. We promote predictability from government so that, and Governor Kotek's done a great job of talking about that during her tenure, and this is what we aren't seeing right now. So the federal government needs to understand the impact that these tariffs and this on again, off again, back again is having on individuals, on businesses, and on economies of Oregon and every state in the nation. Thank you so much, Governor.
Thank you, Madam Treasurer. And today we have Trey with us from Bob's Red Mill.
Hi, yeah, I just had a few words. I just wanted to first let people know what Bob's Red Mill does. Simply, we make food. We have 700 employee owners in Portland, and we distribute our food nationally. You can find our products in most grocery stores throughout the United States. Oats, flour, we're at Walmart, and also Whole Foods Market, just as some examples. We also export to 65 countries. So you can find our products in 65 countries on shelves, which is something that we're working hard to keep. When you think about what it takes to make food, and being a food manufacturer like we are, we cannot buy everything that we need in Oregon. We cannot buy everything in the United States. A lot of the things we import, we actually import from 31 different countries. These are commodities that US farmers just don't grow. We're talking things like coconut, tapioca starch. Quinoa only grows about 13,000 feet. We do not have the ability to grow quinoa in the United States. US suppliers also don't sometimes have the quality or the quantity of what we need. And we know any farmer will tell us that growing food depends not only on the right, it always depends on having the right weather, and that weather doesn't depend on borders. So starting last week, we were impacted by this 10% tariff. We are on the hook for buying when we bring in and import these products. This will cost us millions of dollars, and that money is going to come straight from our bottom line, which we would have used to invest in Bob's Red Mill and the American jobs that we provide. Our hand is being forced to pass on some of this increase to American consumers. The people already hurting the most with inflation when they go to grocery stores. These tariffs are a tax on US consumers, and they will also hurt our employees. The other reason I'm here is regarding the 65 countries that we export to, which is a bigger story in our lives. Once the dust settles on the tariffs and we understand what our costs are, we're still going to have lasting damage to our export markets. We will not have the same countries wanting to buy our products. A quick example of this is in Canada. We have been doing business happily for 25 years in Canada. And last weekend, national news in Canada had an expose on buy this, and it was buy, B-Y-E, like goodbye, with US products, and they had Bob's Red Mill pancake mix right on the TV with a Canadian alternative breakfast pancake. And that was buy as in purchase. So the story was very clear. Canadians should not buy US products. As an Oregon company with a global footprint, we're getting hit both sides, importing and exporting. To put it plainly, tariffs drive up our production costs, they hurt our employees, and they hurt the American consumer. These trade barriers don't protect US jobs, they threaten them by making it hard for us to compete domestically and also globally. Thank you.
Thank you, Trey. And Nick? Sorry. Nick's going to talk a little bit about our shrimp industry here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Nick Edwards. I'm here with Shrimp Producers Marketing Cooperative. We produce Jordani pink shrimp for the global supply chain. And currently, we're looking at a 50% of our product going exported to the EU, and 50% goes here domestically. On April 12th, we heard that the Jordani pink shrimp is going to be put on a retaliatory trade of 25%. And so that pretty much takes out our export markets. What's really ironic is that we have countries like Denmark. They buy 4,000 metric tons of our Jordani pink shrimp for the global supply chain that they do throughout the EU. And now they have to find another product to replace ours when they prefer ours. So we have an extremely an uphill battle of what we have to do is We need our help with USDA to try to find a Section 32 for a food service program to implement Jordani into the USDA AMS food service programs. And hopefully we can get our season started, because right now, because of the 25% tariff, we have nowhere to go. So our coastal communities and our canneries are going to be sitting idle until we figure out what we're going to do next. Thank you.
Thank you, Nick. And we have, we also heard from two economists, one from Business Oregon and our state economist, Carl Riccadonna. So if you have questions from the questions of our economists, they are here to answer them as well. I think the bottom line for me before I take questions, Oregon is not well served by these trade wars or these tariffs. We believe in trade here. We have built entire industries based on trading relationships, both coming into our state and going and leaving our state, across the country and across the globe. These tariffs are bad for Oregon, they're bad for Oregonians, and people are going to get hurt and businesses will be hurt. And so we really urge the Trump administration to not just pause, but to eliminate these tariffs and to give businesses more time to plan for changes in manufacturing if that is actually the goal. So thank you. We'll take any questions.
Yeah. Go for it.
Semiconductor manufacturing was described as the elephant in the room. Was anybody invited, or were they not able to come? Intel, I guess I'm just wondering why they weren't here as a part of the larger Oregon business community that's in this.
Thank you for that question. I wanted to focus today on our small and mid-sized businesses, but you're absolutely right. Semiconductors, large part of our traded economy here in Oregon, very important. So anyone not here doesn't mean they're not important, but we did want to focus on small and mid-sized businesses in particular, because to turn around one day and have a plan, and then the next day be hit with a $150,000 tax bill because of the change in the tariffs, and you're a small business, that is substantial. And not that the large businesses don't have their challenges as well. We just wanted to highlight that today, but we can get more information on some of the larger businesses. And this is only the first conversation. That's why we're starting a survey. We want to hear from other businesses as well, including ones of larger scale. So.
Hi, Kyra Buckley with OPB. I want to ask about a sector that touches everybody in the room, and that's housing. And I've been hearing from home builders and multifamily developers that they have a pause on all projects because of these tariffs, and I know that that's really important for our small businesses that are wondering where their employees or themselves are going to live. Can you talk a little bit, are you concerned that these tariffs are going to hurt the push to build more houses in Oregon, and what are you doing about it?
Well, I am concerned about that, and it's all different types of construction materials, and while I don't have the specifics at my fingertips, we can get you some more information. But when you think about it, I think most people will go to thinking about wood products or other types of products. Well, while we grow some things in Oregon, at the scale we need to build, we are importing, but it's fixtures, it's electrical wiring, it's all these things that you already have long lead time to get some of these things, and now with the additional tariffs, almost impossible to get some of them. So it will impact our ability to construct new homes.
Thank you for taking our questions. Today, Governor Newsom announced that he was suing the Trump administration for those sweeping tariffs. I'm wondering, do you have anything like that on your radar, any lawsuits coming up, or any other future action in response to this?
I am aware of what the governor in California is doing. Here in Oregon, I will be communicating with the Attorney General. We're looking at all threats to Oregon, and the tariffs are one of those threats coming from the Trump administration. Right now, I don't have anything to share about our strategies, but we'll be looking at what California is doing, thinking about what we can be doing here. We want to protect our businesses, and it was interesting to see their strategy today, but we need to look at it and see if that's a good one for us. So.
Is there a role that the state can play in mending the relationships between out-of-country businesses and businesses here in Oregon?
I hope we can pursue that. I know that I was just talking to some of the businesses. There are some trips planned, for example, to Canada to talk with some of the folks that they have business relationships with. I hope we can, people to people, maybe stem some of the impact, but I think it is very difficult. The 10% tariff is significant. We're looking at retaliatory tariffs now from different countries. Those things have real impacts, even if people are trying to maintain those human partnerships. We're going to try. I certainly welcome any conversations with, for example, I'm looking at a meeting coming up with the Canadian consul general who might be visiting. So we need to keep those lines of communication open. But at the top level of government, the Trump administration needs to take a different strategy here, because this is too much, too fast, and it is going to impact in a way that I think will have damage for years to come.
Or do we have any non-repeaters? Yeah, Stacia.
Yeah, so kind of the challenge of too much, too fast has been mentioned a couple times. I was wondering what sort of timeline and the flip side can be expected for the survey results and kind of the plans coming out of that? Should that be expected in the next few weeks or months? What sort of things can people anticipate?
They want to monitor it.
Yeah, thank you for the question. We're going to open the survey, and instead of waiting for everyone to participate, I would like to see it on a rolling basis. So maybe every couple of weeks, getting a report from Business Oregon. What are we hearing? Are we hearing anything differently? Because I think sector by sector it will be a little different. There is a website at Business Oregon to talk about the nature of the tariffs and some of the initial support we can provide. Right now it is, I will be very honest, limited. A couple $1,000s here and there to help businesses plan for the impacts of the tariffs. But we might have to consider something more, but we want to get the data to figure out what would be most effective and what are we actually able to do with the state the size of Oregon, with our resources, what we can do to help people out.
I'm curious, the state economist said it would be in May, mid-year, that you'd have a better idea of how the tea leaves are going to shake out. For these businesses here, I mean, I guess, do you all have any sense of, May sounds like it could be do or die territory. Like, would you even make it to May if these tariffs continue?
Well, here, just broadly speaking, I'll see whoever wants to respond to that, is that right now there is impact, right now, that people are dealing with. Our economy here in Oregon has been strong. Our jobs numbers that came out today are good, our job creation numbers. We are in a very solid spot. This is really undermining our ability to frankly chart our own path. And from the business perspective, we will get a little bit of lag on the state government side. We won't know till later in the year if this will have impacts on our budget. So I would actually recommend that legislators try to build the best budget possible, and then see where things lie 6 months from now. Because I think if we pull back too much at the state, I think that will also have an adverse impact. So I think we should be cautious about overreacting, but we need to come up with some strategies, because these challenges are going to continue to grow as the tariffs, if they stay in place, would continue. Anybody want to? I don't know.
I'm happy to take that.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Emma, CEO at Wildfang. We're a fashion brand based at Portland, Oregon. We operate nationally. The tariffs on China are significant, 152.5% at this point. The additional tariffs went in last Tuesday at midnight. We had a shipment arrive at Long Beach for our summer product on Monday. If that shipment had arrived on Wednesday morning, we would have had to pay $178,000 in additional tariffs that we were not prepared for. So as a small business, that's crippling. So to answer your question, we now have 8 weeks until our next shipment arrives. So maybe check in with me in 7 weeks. But we're going to do everything we can in that time to find alternative solutions, work with our partners in manufacturing, look at new manufacturers. But we got extremely lucky. If that had arrived 48 hours later, it would have been absolutely crippling to our business.
Obviously today was the roundtable to hear from the various businesses to hear about the impacts, and I know there's a survey, but I'm just wondering, is there anything else, info that you learned today is going to be used for? Like, what happens with the information that everyone shared with you today going forward?
Well, I want to take this information and talk with my team and our agency leaders. We have obviously the Director of Business Oregon here, the Director of the Department of Agriculture, sit down and be like, okay, what can we do? Do we have any tools in place? Certainly would like to have a conversation with the legislature, but we have a lot of budget asks, so I don't want to set any expectations there, because this really is a national problem that Oregon is trying to do the best we can to run some defense. In terms of where we go next, I think as Carl was talking this morning about, or relaying this afternoon about what we're hearing from the feds, the Federal Reserve, I think that is an important bit of news. I don't, Carl, if you want to say anything more about that.
Good afternoon. I can't underscore the importance enough of doing the survey, right? If there's a message here, at economic turning points, it takes time for the results to become evident in hard economic data, which is why I made the point that if we're looking for a jobs report or a GDP report, retail sales, these types of metrics, we might be waiting until June or July to see the outcome. And so at economic turning points, the feedback from business is absolutely critical. And that's why whenever there is any shock to the economy, a hurricane, an earthquake, trade tensions, the first step is measure, evaluate the problem, right? Collect the data. You can't address the problem if you don't understand the scope of the problem. And so the contributions to the survey are very important for thinking of what a policy response could ultimately look like.
If I could just add something quickly. Thank you, Governor. The one other point I'd make is this. Oregon government's capacity to help in this situation is limited by the fact that we're facing federal funding freezes at the same time that we're facing these tariffs. So we've got a whole bunch of funding that was supposed to come to the state for public health, for education, for all sorts of programs that are critical to Oregonians across the state, and particularly in rural Oregon. And when those programs have funding cut from the federal level, we have to make a decision as our state. My colleagues in the legislature have to make a decision about where we're able to backfill and where we're not able to backfill, and that limits our ability to use funds to help businesses weather this storm of the tariffs. So I think it's important to point out that the effects of tariffs are compounded by other actions of the federal government.
Thank you.
All right, we got time for two more.
I'll take it if nobody else does.
All right, go for it, Alex.
Speaking of, I think somebody had said the Democratic congressional delegation was helpful. Maybe it was the shrimp industry. I apologize, I'm forgetting. Obviously, there's one lone Republican in Eastern Oregon, arguably constituents most impacted by these tariffs and federal cuts. Have you had any discussions with Rep. Bentz about what he's doing as our state's lone Republican in Congress?
We haven't had a chance to connect yet, although as it turns out, we'll be connecting tomorrow to talk about the needs in Harney County because of the flood. I was out there last week. So I do think we need unity among our entire congressional delegation to make it clear to the Trump administration what Oregon needs. So I think we'll get there. I do think rural parts of the state in particular are significantly impacted, particularly ag exports. So it's something we all need to keep in mind. So I look forward to talking to the congressmen.
One more? Anybody want it?
I'll take it if nobody else does. Please.
I mean, just to wrap up, all of us, I'm sure, are talking to business owners and consumers, and we heard from today that there's just a lot of anxiety. Of course, life is uncertain, but we are facing a specifically uncertain time, and I'm just hoping you could talk to everyday Oregonians that are trying to go to work, trying to make ends meet, trying to make their car payments, and they are saying, even if these tariffs get paused again or something else happens, prices are already going up and they're already having a hard time. Can you just talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, thanks for the question. Well, to Oregonians who are watching, I know things are hard. I do my own grocery shopping as well. I see what's out there. I know that folks are seeing prices going up and up and up. Our homelessness crisis is about folks who cannot afford their housing. So, a couple messages. We're in this together. We're going to continue to be smart about what we do to address problems and try to find those solutions together. I've been heartened by folks across the state. We have businesses from across the state. Leaders across the state are trying to figure out these problems at the local level. As your governor, I am going to keep fighting. I'm not going to give up no matter what we hear from the federal government. We're going to be smart about what we can do, and we're going to be focused on helping individual Oregonians and their families make ends meet and do what we can to solve problems for you. So know that we need to hear from you. I want to ask all our news outlets today, please promote the survey. So we do hear from businesses. And folks can always email my office to share your personal stories so we can understand what is happening on the ground for you today so we can solve the problems together. So thank you. And I want to thank the folks who were joining us today. Thanks again for being part of this. We got a lot of work to do, and this is just the start of a conversation on this issue. So thank you very much.
Thank you.